Welcome to our introduction to handwriting analysis. My name is Marianne Nauer. I'm the president of the Swiss Society of Graphology and the director of the Institute of Handwriting Sciences. Handwriting is a very special cultural asset. It was created a few thousand years ago and has been with us ever since. For this reason alone, we should preserve it carefully. New research confirms that very special processes take place in the brain during handwriting. Many new connections are formed between the nerves. So, does writing make you smart? We will come back to this. In any case, these connections must be researched. What is certain is that every handwriting differs from any other. Every handwriting is absolutely individual and unique. It is therefore recognizable, and that is exactly why the signature is legally valid. But this also means that the personality must be reflected in it in some way. First, a few definitions. When we talk about handwriting analysis, there is both a scientific and a practical aspect. I therefore suggest that we agree on the following terms. Handwriting psychology refers to our theoretical models and their scientific investigation. But when we speak of graphology, we mean the technique that uses these models in everyday practice. Before we continue, it is an advantage if you do a short exercise for yourself. Take an ordinary white writing pad without lines and a ballpoint pen. Write the words handwriting analysis first as big as possible, then as small as possible. Write the words handwriting analysis as quickly as possible, then as slowly as possible. Write the words handwriting analysis as tightly as possible, then as loosely as possible. Write down some points for yourself. What did you notice? What did you feel? Do you still recognize your changed handwriting? What has changed? What has not changed? What experiences have you had overall today? You will also notice that you have just made a document that shows what you have done. We can therefore state that the handwriting is nothing other than a coagulated trace of movement. This has the invaluable advantage that this movement can also be traced and interpreted retrospectively, even after many years. What we have also done is to experience the 5 basic dimensions. These are movement, form, space, pressure, and stroke. First of all, we have movement. Without movement, nothing happens. We need an initial impulse that sets everything in motion. You have already made the experience that we can distinguish the extremes very well: fast movement, slow movement. In between, there are gradations, which can be divided into small or large sections. At first, simply, for example, slow, medium, fast. You see in the picture 3 different but all strongly moved fonts, 2 of them clearly with emphasis on movement. The second dimension is the form. The form embodies an intention. I want to write something another person can read. Handwriting is always communicative and ought to be, therefore, more or less legible. The form is designed rather consciously. It becomes either big or small, it becomes round or square, it becomes skull-like or individual, and so on. Here too we can scale and say, The font is large, medium, small, and so on. The picture shows 3 strongly shaped fonts. Third, the space is added. My movement and the realization of my intention emerge in a certain space. Here, in the writing space, on a white sheet of paper that is available to me. We can then say, for example, that the writing is rather ordered or rather disordered, and here a clear, airy, and clearly arranged one. Fourth, some pressure is needed, because without pressure there is no trace of writing. This can be strong, as in the first writing, or weak, as in the second one. It can be regular, as in the first one, or irregular, as in the third one. Another, 5th dimension, a kind of micro-dimension we can grasp in the fine structure of the stroke. The stroke can, for example, be taut or limp, or, in the ideal middle position, elastic, like a good rubber band. We can see something like this in the upper left corner. It takes a lot of practice to reliably determine this dimension. So all these dimensions can already be recorded in a simple table, which we will divide up even more finely later. So we'll sum it up. Handwriting is coagulated movement. The visible trace of movement is created by a movement that takes on a form within the writing space by exerting a certain pressure. The structure of the stroke shows a 5th, a kind of micro-dimension. It also becomes clear that, ideally, we do not move too much in extremes. The aim of a fluid handwriting is certainly to achieve a good integration of all dimensions, but above all of form and movement. With these 3 handwritings, the result is very different. Let it have an effect on you and write down what you see. We will come back to it. In this example, we can clearly speak of optimal integration. We see a good movement impulse, and yet the form is so consistent that you can read everything. What can we now say about the significance of these dimensions? We have already seen the direction in which this can go on the basis of these remarks. It is about an understanding of these events on paper. Some principles have to be observed. Now we cannot simply assign a certain character trait to a single characteristic, such as the size here. Each trait comes into being in a certain way. In this example, we have 2 different fonts that are exactly the same height at the highest point in the original, exactly 3 centimeters. However, the first word, Frau, which means woman, was written from a completely different impulse than the second one. It is strongly emphasized on form, slow and precise. The name Peter, on the other hand, is written so quickly and hastily that it is hardly legible anymore. Those are, despite identical letter height, 2 completely different worlds. It's similar with small writings like here. You can't say anything clear about the peculiarity of the writers. The first typeface is very precise and tense, purposeful, and as if chaste. The second is also tense, but uncertain in its forward motion. It breaks off again and again. The letters are not well connected. The third typeface runs loosely and fluidly, connected throughout the paper. Thus, different characteristics must always be related to each other at the same time. This multiple determination applies to all characteristics. Here are some writings with left slant. 3 completely different writings in approximately the same slightly left oblique position. In the interpretation of manuscripts, about 50 main features and up to 400 further features are generally recorded, scaled, and interpreted, each one in its overall context. Theoretically, this results in up to 80,000 possible combinations. If we once again bear in mind that handwriting is brainwriting, this complexity does not surprise us any further. It is important to know that handwriting analysis does not describe behavior, but goes one level deeper. It unlines the inner psychic, thus dynamic and functional structure of personality. This is to be continued. Do you have any further questions? Do you want to follow our basic course online? Do not hesitate to contact the following address.